second. Record to the cloud. We continue the study of Chot Shabbat. We're now in Shulchan Aruch Orach Haim, Siman Resh Samech Aleph 261, which speaks about the time of candle lighting. So we spoke a little bit about it last week, about the different opinions trying to determine Ben Hashmashot, night, or Misha Hashecha, Shkiat Hama, etc. Obviously, at the time of the rabbis, there was no such thing as creating a timetable with exact time, minutes, let alone seconds. But today we have it, so it's good to know that and to learn it, thoroughly, in case of doubt or need, that Shkia is still sort of like the last frontier, the way we accept it, but according to Rabbeinu Tam, maybe there's a possibility to extend it until it's completely dark. Usually we rely on it only people follow it only from Motzei Shabbat, but I believe that in case of emergency, that could be applied also at the beginning of Shabbat. And you see that as long as it's not total darkness, there's still could be called Ben Hashmashot. There's room to say that. I'm not saying that the majority opinion, but like in extreme situations, not life-threatening. If it's life-threatening, nothing stands in its way, but just have in mind that. One interesting item here, we're still in Saif Aleph of Siman Resh Samech Aleph, says, ומותר לומר לעקום בין השמשות, להדליק נר לצורך שבת, וכן לומר לו לעשות כל מלאכה שהיא לצורך מצווה, או שהוא טרוד ונחפז עליה. So you're allowed to say to a non-Jew during twilight, after sunset, before total darkness, to light a candle for you, or anything that, even though it's forbidden on Shabbat and you already started Shabbat, but that's it is your decision to start Shabbat a little earlier. So it's fine to tell the non-Jew to say that. Remember, we spoke about that the whole prohibition to tell a non-Jew is a rabbinical prohibition, not a biblical one, and therefore they allow you to do it in the additional time frame which they also added. וכן מי שקיבל עליו שבת קודם שעה או שתיים קודם חשיכה יכול לומר להדליק הנר ושאר דברים שצריך. Also, someone who started Shabbat early for whatever reason, and here it gives an example, even 2 hours before nightfall, can tell other people who did not start Shabbat yet to light the candles and other things, and other things that are necessary. There was an interesting debate starting in the 70s or 80s in Yerushalayim. The minhag was to light candles 40 minutes before sunset, and in the rest of the country, it was 18 minutes before sunset. And Rabbi Ovadia said, when he became the chief rabbi, he fought against this minhag because he argued that people who accept Shabbat earlier unnecessarily think of others who start Shabbat later as transgressors of Shabbat. Till today, you have two factions in Yerushalayim. Some do 40 minutes before, some do 18 minutes before. But I know people who who start Shabbat so early that they finish Kabbalat Shabbat, Arvit, and they come back home before candle lighting, even in the winter. So that's pretty extreme. But remember the Teshuvah of Tumat HaDeshen that I mentioned of Marai Solin, who says that in some places in Europe where apparently the sunset was really late at night, they would do the Tefillah, Kabbalat Shabbat so early that they would be able to do the Tefillah, go home, do Kiddush, eat, and then go for a walk by the river before nightfall, before sunset. So that's really like 3-4 hours before Shabbat starts. And he says that even the great rabbis would do that. But of course, he opposes it, and eventually, because of his opposition and other who joined him, that minhag was uprooted. But it could have helped. I would have loved for my community here, where I'm a congregant at the moment, I'm not setting the times, to start tefillah in the late Shabbatot of the summer, much earlier, like even 5:30, 6, so you could eat earlier and not at 9:30 at night. Anyway, סעיף ב', he says, יש אומרים שצריך להוסיף מחול על הקודש. Some say that you have to add from the secular time on the sacred time, and we do it anyway. That's all the calendars do it. וזמן תוספת זה הוא מתחילת השקיעה עד בין השמשות. So actually, from sunset till the end of twilight, that's already the addition. So we add 18 extra minutes. We are very, very strict with that. ומי שאינו בקיא בשיעור הזה, Seif Gimel takes us back to the end of our previous class that where we discussed the ambiguity in the language of halakha. This Seif is a translation from the Aramaic. It's almost verbatim, but it's translation from the Aramaic in the Talmud to the Hebrew. He says if you don't know exactly how to calculate the time between sunset and twilight and nightfall, Yadlik be'ot she'ashemesh be'rosh ha'inanot. Light the candles when the sun is still seen on the top of the trees. So I guess it doesn't matter if it's a sequoia tree or it's just a shrub. It should be the same height. And then it says if it's a cloudy day and you can't see the sun, Yadlik she'tarnegolim yoshem ala kora mibe'od yom. When the roosters come to nest and they sit on the fence, and if you are in the field and there are no roosters, follow the ravens, and when they sit, to rest on the branches, then you could light. All these things are very ambiguous, obviously, because they had no ways to measure time. We are so much better in that sense, but like I said, we fall into that trap of over-calculating. This is a quote from the Gemara, and then the Shulchan Aruch objects in his a manner of writing that we spoke about before, where he leaves things open-ended. So he says the official time for Kabbalat Shabbat is when you said Baruch Hu et Adonai Mevorach in the Bet Knesset. Once the Hazan said Baruch Hu and everybody answered, that's the beginning of Shabbat. Now that is a quote from the Gemara, but the Shulchan Aruch says, Rabbi Yosef Karo, לדידן הווה אמירת מזמור שיר ליום השבת, כעניית Baruch Hu לדידו. For us, when you say מזמור שיר ליום השבת, this is Kabbalat Shabbat. So what Rabbi Karo is saying is a reflection of a later minhag that came after the Gemara. At the time of the Gemara, they did not say Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat Be'erev Shabbat. Later on, people added the Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat as an introduction to Arvit. Why? Probably because they felt that Arvit is not glorious enough to welcome Shabbat. I think that's the reason. We have to remember that at the time of the sages, at the time of the Mishnah, Erev Shabbat was almost a regular day. Friday night, I think I mentioned that before, and we'll see it definitely in the next saif. Friday night, you'd come home from work. Sometimes people work till the last minute. Come home, plop on the bed, and go to sleep. Maybe eat like a regular meal and something. There was no candle lighting, no set table, or singing or anything like that. So the rabbis added that, and they added the elements in tefillah to make it a more festive prayer. So that was very nice. But after several generations, people said, wow, Erev Shabbat, we light candles, we set the table, everything is so beautiful, but the tefillah is not fancy enough. We have to add something. So they added Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat. And hundreds of years later, but already at the time of Yosef Karo, Rabbi Shlomo Elkavetz added the beautiful piyut, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, which now has become standard in all communities. So that's the end of 261. We go to 262. Here we read this. יסדר שולחנו ויציע עמיתות ויתקן כל ענייני הבית, כדי שימצאנו ערוך ומסודר בבואו מבית הכנסת. ויהיה שולחנו ערוך כל יום השבת, וכן המנהג בין לשמות. So one should set the table and set the beds and get everything ready at home so you find it clean and ready when you come home. Note that here is like almost a sense of equality. Unlike other places where the halakha sometimes says that women have to do that, here it says it's on the man. He should set the table, he should set the bed, he should get the house ready for Shabbat. That is based on a statement in the Gemara, which the tool brings. I'm going to share it with you. And that's also the basis for the reading of Malachi Sharet. Here's what the tool says. Amar Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, he quotes the Gemara. This is in Masechet Shabbat, דף קמ"ג. שני מלאכי השרת מלווים לו לאדם בערב שבת מבית הכנסת לביתו. Two angels accompany every person from the synagogue home. One is good, one is evil. When you come home and you find a lit candle and a set table and a set bed, the good angel says, may it be the same next Shabbat. And the evil one says, Amen, against his will. And vice versa. If it's not ready, the evil one says, may it be the same next Shabbat. And the good one says, Amen, against his will. So that midrash, or that teaching of Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, is the reason for the piyut that we sing on Kabbalat Shabbat, Bo'achem leShalom Malachei Shalom. We say, welcome in peace, angels of peace. We want both of them to be angels of peace, good angels, and not, God forbid, evil angels. And here, there are different minhagim. Some say each verse 3 times, some say once, some say Baruchuni, bless me in the personal, and then in the singular, some say Baruchunu, bless us in the plural. And some minhagim, such as mine also, the Iraqi minhag, is not to say the phrase that starts Betzetchem leShalom, when you leave with peace, the angel of peace, because we don't want them to go away, we want them to stay. So we don't tell them that they have to leave. But the reason really I think the background for the Midrash, why Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda had to speak with such language, is that this was not an easy thing for people to do. They were not used to it. Today we take it for granted that this is the most beautiful time of the week. Friday is winding down. You turn everything off. You come back from work. You get the house ready, the table ready, singing. It's beautiful. But that was not the norm at the time of the Mishnah. So as an added measure to make sure that people will do it, Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda presents this story about the angels who accompany you. And when you think of it in such a visual way, and you say, oh, I don't want this to happen next Shabbat, then definitely you'll do it. But one comment, when they say Yatzia Amitot, one of the commentators said it, and this is the real, probably true commentary. When they say set the beds, they don't mean the beds to go to sleep on, but rather the beds around the table on which you're going to sit or recline. Because you're allowed, at the time people would recline, not only on Pesach. One more thing that is from that Mishnah, from that Gemara, Rabbi Hanina, Me'atef v'kai b'fanya de'ma'ale Shabbat. Rabbi Hanina used to wrap himself with a beautiful garment on Friday evening. Ve'omer, bo v'netze likrat Shabbat malketa. Let us go out and welcome Shabbat, the queen. Rabbi Yanai omer, boi kala, boi kala. Rabbi Yanai says, what he would say, Rabbi Yanai used to say, boi kala, boi kala. This is in Perek Kol Kitvei, in Masechet Shabbat. I think it's page 143 of Masechet Shabbat. The source of this Gemara is of the story is in Masechet Shabbat, Daf Kuf Yutet Amud Aleph, page 119a, and that's where the Gemara also discusses all the preparations for Shabbat. We go back to the Shulchan Aruch. Says Yishtadel shiyu lo bgadim na'im leShabbat. You should try to have nice clothes for Shabbat. Ve'im efshar lo, and if you can't have it, לפחות ישלשל בגדיו למטה דרך כבוד. At least pull your robe down. So this is like a completely different world, that from what we're used to. Clothes have become so cheap today. You could buy and throw. People didn't even think about that. But back in the day, people might have had only one robe. So it says, make sure that you have nice robes for Shabbat. And if you can't, use the same one. In another place, it says that you have to try to wash it on Thursday, so you have clean clothes for Shabbat. Like you wash clothes once a week. What is this idea of pull it down? I think that it means that during the week, people who work in the field or in the construction, whatever, used to roll their robes up to their knees so they don't get dirty from the dust, from the ground. So on Shabbat, it says, feel like a wealthy man, a wealthy person allows himself to let the robe go all the way down. It doesn't care if it sweeps the floor because his floor is speckless. It's shining. So this is just interesting, something to think of the way people lived back in the days. Now, we are so used to the comfort and the abundance that we have today. So back to Shulchan Aruch. Again, this is the source that we just saw, boy kala, and we'll go to Siman Resh Samech Gimel. Yeheh zahir la'asot ner yafeh. Make sure that you do make a nice candle. Some people light 2 candles, one corresponding to Zachor, one to Shamor. Some light more. My wife lights 7 candles. That as a minhag that she picked from my mother. I don't know why my mother lit 7 candles, probably for the 7 days of the week. So 7 is a nice number. And this is really a beautiful minhag that the rabbis established to welcome the Shabbat with light. But the idea of having candles for Shabbat, the original idea was just to have light at home. You don't want to sit in the dark. Because if you didn't light candles, you just didn't have light. It was not romantic or holy or anything like that. So the rabbis wanted to make sure that people do that, and they said whether men or women, men who live alone, women who live alone, they all have to have a lit candle on Shabbat. And even if you have nothing to eat, afilu en lo ma yochal, shoel al hapetachim. You have to go and collect charity. ולוקח שמן ומדליק את הנר, שזה בכלל עונג שבת הוא. You have to buy oil and light the candle because this is עונג Shabbat. And I'm really wondering about this halacha. Why was it so important to for the rabbis to say, go and ask for charity and light the candle for Shabbat? Because in other places they say, and the two, Rabbi Yaakov ben Rabbeinu Asher, struggles with that. He says, what is the definition of I don't have enough that will allow me or would force me to go and ask for charity? In other places, the rabbi said, you should do whatever is within your power, just don't ask for charity, right? They even say, do something that is below your expertise or your honor, as long as you don't have to ask, just so you don't have to ask for support from others. So why did they insist on this halacha? They also say it with Ner Hanukkah, but I think that with the Ner Shabbat, since they were the one who established the idea that you have to light candles for Shabbat, I think that they understood that, someone who is in dire circumstances, he says he barely has what to eat. Comes Erev Shabbat, he goes home, and he says to himself, I'm so poor, I can't even afford to light an oil candle for Shabbat. And he goes to sleep feeling miserable, and in the darkness. Now the rabbi said, no, you have to get oil for Shabbat, even if it means that you have to ask for a favor. So he asks for a favor, but it's not asking for money to buy food. He's asking you to light a candle. It's less degrading. Now he lights the candle, he sits in the light, his window is lit just like all the other windows of all the people around him. He doesn't feel isolated. And then this hopefully will push and prompt him to work harder and to make sure that next Shabbat he also has food on the table that is his own. So I think that is maybe the background of this halacha. Going back to the Shulchan Aruch, הנשים מוזרות בו יותר, מפני שהן מצויות בבית ועוסקות בצורכי הבית. It became more of a practice for the women to do it because they are the ones who take care of the household, of preparing for Shabbat. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention it here, but the Torah does. I believe, one second. And that is something that is actually mentioned in the Mishnah in the second chapter of Masechet Shabbat. It says, על שלוש עבירות נשים מתות בשעת לידתן, על שאינן זהירות בנידה ובחלה ובהדלקת הנר. There are three things that cause women to die at birth because they're not careful with the laws of family purity and separating challah when they bake and lighting the candle on Friday night. So it's a harsh midrash. When you think of it, you say, here is a woman who's taking a risk, and even today, it's a very risky process. Having a child, we take it for granted that everything goes well. It doesn't always go well. And the rabbi said it's because women are sinners, that every woman who died at birth maybe sinned on one of those things. Could we say it about Rachel, Yaakov's wife? What is the source of this midrash? So the midrash says this, מפני שכיבתה נרו של עולם, פירוש גרמה מיתה לאדם הראשון. So the midrash says that the reason the women were given those three mitzvot is to atone for the sin of Hava, of the woman who made Adam eat from the forbidden fruit. So I have my own interpretation on the forbidden fruit, and if you want to, I have lectures on it. You can listen to the podcast. I don't think that it was between a man and a woman, but rather more of a symbolic representation of the powers within us. However, this is the way the Torah chose to tell the story. And the rabbis used it to promote the idea of lighting candle before Shabbat, and also the mitzvot that they felt were associated with women, such as Nida and Hala. And they said when the woman gave Adam the fruit and he ate it, she put out the candle of the world. Adam was the light, and she put him out. So now she has to rekindle the fire. And they say the same thing about Nida. They say she spilled the blood, so now she has to clean it. About Hala, she spoiled the dough that had to be baked perfectly to become Adam, and now she has to fix it. But to me, the important point here is not the idea of reward and punishment, but rather the way in which the rabbis were able to elevate something which is so mundane. Lighting candles, yes, it is associated in many traditions with religious and holy activities, but in that case, they just wanted the woman or the men to have light at home for Shabbat. So what did they do with this midrash? And what they did is that instead of that act of lighting candles being an isolated act in time and place that each individual does separately, they made it into one link in a chain that goes progressively from the creation of the world till the end of times to redemption. That is something that is called, we could call it a myth, not mythology, but a myth. It's a story that has roots in ancient times, even before the formation of humanity as we know it today. And what happens now, every woman who lights candles, and if she thinks about that, she knows that story, she feels that she is now coming from a long chain of women who lit candles for Shabbat in order to bring the world to a better place, and she's adding another layer. So that makes this isolated act, instead of just her doing it here, she's connecting to all the women before her and after her, and all the women who are now simultaneously with her lighting candles. So I think it's a beautiful thing. I could tell you that maybe I mentioned it once in the class, but when my wife lights the candles, she takes her time, I don't know, 20 minutes sometimes to do the tefillah. It's really a moment where you could create a temple in time. And this is a gift that the rabbis gave us with this halakha, even if it was written in a way that is a bit harsh. That was the spirit of the day, and we have to have more positive attitude. I'm always preaching that, but I think the positive thing that we get out of it is how the act was elevated from a solitary act to something that is connected to generations before and after. We'll take a little pause and to the text. So we are in Seif Dalet of 263. The Shulchan Aruch says, לא יקדים למהר להדליקו בעוד היום גדול, שאז אינו ניכר שמדליקו לכבוד שבת. He says, don't light the candles too early, because then it's not clear that you light it for Shabbat. וגם לא יאחר, and don't do it too late. ואם רוצה להדליק נר בעוד היום גדול ולקבל עליו שבת מיד, רשאי. So, but if you want to light the candles and accept Shabbat on yourself immediately, you're allowed, because that now it's clear, obviously, that you're doing it for Shabbat. ובלבד שיהיה מפלג המנחה ולמעלה, but it gives you the limit. You could do it an hour and 15 minutes before sunset. That's when you could light the candles and accept Shabbat. And when you say the baracha, it says, כשידליק יברך ברוך אתה השם אשר קידשנו וצווה להדליק נר של שבת. And here, actually it says, גם ביום טוב צריך לברך נר של יום טוב. But that doesn't appear in earlier sources. וביום הכיפורים בלא שבת, יש מי שאומר שלא יברך. When it's Yom Kippur and that is not on Shabbat, some say that you don't say the baracha because the light of the candles is only necessary for the meal. You want to be able to eat with light. So just 1 second, I'm going to look at the next thing. So if you look in the tool, doesn't mention the baracha, right? The tool does not mention the baracha. Okay, so let's go back to the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch goes on to say, the Rama actually says, יש מי שאומר שמברכים קודם ההדלקה, ויש מי שאומר שמברך אחר ההדלקה. Some people say that you say the bracha before you light the candles. Some people say that you say the bracha after lighting the candles. Now, usually, with all the brachot, b'chot ha-mitzvot, there's a concept of over la'asiyato. So you do the bracha and then you perform the mitzvah. So on Shabbat, that has created a problem for people, because if you say the baracha and the baracha of on the candles makes you accept Shabbat, now if how can you light the candles? You're doing something that is forbidden. So the Sephardic minhag following Rabbi Yosef Karo was to first light and then say the baracha to avoid that problem. But many communities, even among the Sfaradim, such as the Iraqis, would first say the bracha and then light the candles. And that became a source of a big dispute in Eretz Israel. Again, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef ignited it, no pun intended, with when he insisted that everybody should follow the Shulchan Aruch and first a light and then say the bracha, and other rabbis objected and say, how can you say the bracha after you already performed the mitzvah? And then people offered a solution: say the bracha for the candles, but have in mind that you're not Mekabel Shabbat until after you lit the candles. So this is really, we're dancing some kind of a catch-22. It's obvious that even if you say, and that was the tradition we had, even if you say that with lighting candles you're Mekabel Shabbat, it is not done until you put the candle or the match with which you lit the candles away. This should really have been the understanding. So you say Baruch Atah Hashem, Sher Kiddushan Stav Tzivam Alik Ner Shel Shabbat. You light all the candles, you put it aside, and now Shabbat starts for you. But even those who say that you could say the bracha first and light the candles were still nervous. They felt that this is part of one continuous motion, but putting the match or the candle, putting it out, the one that you used to light, is too much. It's not part of the act. So they said, just put it aside and don't put it out. So they maintain that. Yes, Yosef, you had a question? Yes.
Yes. It seems though from like what we just learned before about accepting Shabbat from Plag Mincha onwards, that he says that as long as once you light the candles and then you accept Shabbat miyad, it's implied that once you lighting candles as an acceptance of Shabbat, that he had to write, now you have to accept miyad if you like.
Right. You're right. The lighting the candles was not automatically associated to Kabbalat Shabbat. And that's why in the previous Sarif, like you said, he says it has to be clear that you're lighting it in honor of Shabbat, even if you say the bracha. So the idea of Asher Kiddeshanu Mitzvotav Etzivanu Adlik Ner Shel Shabbat was not Asher Kiddeshanu Mitzvotav Etzivanu to start Shabbat now, but rather I'm lighting the candle of Shabbat, so I will have Oneg Shabbat. That it was the just the idea of the bracha. So, but once it became completely associated, it became a problem. And to that question about waving hands, it could be that it's connected to the idea of when exactly does Shabbat start for you. So, if you light the candles and then you cover your eyes and you remove them, it's as if now you're lighting the candle. So that solved the problem of accepting Shabbat with lighting. So what you're doing actually, you say the bracha, you light the candles, covering your eye. When you cover your eye, you don't see the light. And when you remove them, that's when Shabbat starts for you. That's when the light of Shabbat is revealed. So I think that is really the beginning of Shabbat. So later on, we'll see that the Shulchan Aruch says that if you don't light the candles or you don't know when to light candles and you come to the synagogue, the communal prayer is the beginning of Shabbat for you, but it's not Minha, it's Baruch Hu, which actually is the end of Minha. It's just the transition in at that time from Minha to Baruch Hu. You basically finished Alenu Shabbat and you said Baruch Hu. But like I said, later on, people added a lot of readings before. Bizamor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat, Bavei Madlikin, the Lechu Neranena, and a lot of other things. Shir HaShirim in some communities is a break between Minha and Arvit. Okay, so now they go into a lot of details, which I'm not going to go into, of what happens if you eat here and you light there, and so all these things really. The questions of where do you light candles, where you eat, where you sleep, what happens if you light candles inside and then you go eating outside. All these things are really associated with the time where candles were the only light source at home. Today, the question was even raised whether you could say the bracha, when you have electric light at home, the house is flooded with light. So why are you saying we're saying the bracha? And some people, because of that, had a custom of putting out lights, at least at the corner where they light the candles. But this is not really unnecessary. However, it's unnecessary to put out the lights, but we can definitely rely on the light around the house to not worry about where exactly the candles are placed, because now we understand that those candles, we have to accept it, have morphed or transitioned from being something that was practical to something that is only symbolical. And it's okay, because now it's symbolism. It's not what it was 2,000 years ago. This is something that is cumulative over the years, thousands of years, really almost 2,000 years, that people have been doing that and associating it with the sanctity of Shabbat, gave those candles special status. So now it doesn't matter where you light them, as long as you light them in honor of Shabbat. But yes, the custom is to light them at the place where you could see them while eating. And some communities, again, mine included, have the minhag of looking, when you say the Kiddush, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei peri gefen, since the gefen is abundance, and the light is the light that allows you to enjoy the abundance. When you say borei peri gefen, you look at the candles, and then also you lock eyes with all the people around the table. And I think it's a very nice minhag. It's the light of Shabbat. And but I've been in households where the Kiddush is said very serenely, beautifully, but the Mekadesh, or whoever it says the Kiddush, has his head in the cup with the concentration. But when you lift your eyes and you look everyone in the eye, it's really, if you feel this camaraderie around the table, and I think it's a very nice minhag. In Siman Yud Aleph, he says, "Af al pi shelo yitpalelu hakahal adayin, im kadam hayachid v'yitpalel shel Shabbat mib'od yom harav kabbalat Shabbat." So one way to get Shabbat early, without the candles, is to pray Arvit shel Shabbat, even if the community did not pray it. However, im rov hakahal kiblu aleim Shabbat, hami'ut nimshachim achareim ba'al korcham. If the majority of the community already started Shabbat, the minority must follow. Now, this really refers to a place where there's only one synagogue in town. And that, I'm saying that because I've witnessed in many different places. One of them, when I lived in Deal in New Jersey, which is a resort town, in the summer, the city swells from 15,000 to 70,000 people. All the Brooklynites come down to the shore points of New Jersey to be there for the summer. So as a result, you have dozens of synagogues all over town, and dozens of minyanim. Some start early, some start later. So there were those who argued that everybody must follow the earliest, they looked, okay, I don't know, someone actually bothered to do the calculation, and he said that the majority of the minyanim start Shabbat, let's say, at 6:30, and then 25% of the minyanim start at 7:30. And when the 6:30 people come out of shul, they see the 7:30 people driving to shul, and it's not Shabbat yet until 8. And they felt very uncomfortable with it, and they said, here the Shulchan Aruch says, "Im rov hakahal kiblu aleim Shabbat, hami'ut nimshachim achareim ba'al korcham." Here, the majority of the townspeople started Shabbat early, so the minority must follow. The answer to that is no. It's not im rov anshei ha'ir, im rov hakahal. It's one community, and that refers to the time where there was one community in town. If there are many different communities, each one follows its way, and it's advisable for people always to not judge others as transgressors. If you know the halakha, you understand, I decided to accept Shabbat early. I cannot call someone who did not do that, I cannot call him a transgressor. That would be ridiculous. The Seif Yudalet, interesting, says, "In biyom ha'me'unan, ta'ut zibur." I'm saying it just for the understanding of the seat in life of the halakha. Say if it was cloudy and the community thought that it's already dark, they lit candles and they prayed Arvit Shabbat, and then the clouds scattered and the sun is now shining. Do they have to do again Arvit or not? I mean, there are many details here that really are not important because this is not going to happen today. But just think of when you see those charts with candle lighting at 7:22 minutes and 43 seconds, you say, hey, the Shulchan Aruch speaks about a case where there was a mistake of an hour or two that people didn't realize that it's not nighttime yet. Okay, we already spoke about that. So you could ask someone else to do work for you. Okay, the next Saif 264 speaks about the laws of which candles could be lit and what wicks can we use, and that is something that we read in the chapter B'mei Madlikin, the second chapter of Masechet Shabbat. Really not applicable today because either you use the paraffin or whatever material is, or beeswax candles, or you use oil. So all these halachot do not apply. The several rules that the halacha followed when writing, or the rabbis followed when they wrote this chapter, is they wanted to make sure that the candle burns brightly, that it doesn't sparkle or creates bad smell that will cause you to want to put it out. And one very interesting thing is they wanted to make sure that you're not going to take from the oil of the candle to put in your salad. I mean, this is not something that we will do today, but at the time they had the receptacles for a candle with oil on one hand and on one side, like Aladdin's lamp, and the wick in the other. And if they wanted to extend the life of the candle, they would put a hollow tube on top of the candle that would drip one drop at a time into the candle. It's like a timer. And the rabbi said this you cannot use on Shabbat because you might want to have a little oil on your bread and you'll put it under the drip to soak your bread in oil. And we wouldn't do that today, right? We have very clear separation between the oil that we use for lighting and the oil that we use on our salad. Again, this is just something to have in mind, how times change. That 265 that I just mentioned. Okay, so Siman 266 we'll discuss next time. This is about someone who travels and gets stuck on the way with stuff on him that is afraid to lose or afraid to be stolen from him, and then the halachot of the tefillot. But with this, we will discuss all this next week, God willing. I'm going to pause the recording now and have time for question and discussion. And Be'ezrat Hashem, as I said, we'll continue next week with Simanim 266 and on.